Good afternoon. It is Monday, October the 6th, and we're here for a meeting of the Glendale Water and Power Commission. We'll begin by calling the roll.
Item number 1, roll call. President Fay,
Here.
Commissioner Flanagan,
Here.
Commissioner Armenian,
Present.
Commissioner Avanesian,
Here.
and Commissioner Avedian.
Here.
Action number 2, item number 2, action items, Water and Power Commission elections.
So we've been advised that this matter has been continued for a number of months from, I think, originally scheduled in March of 2025. And we had some changes in the composition of the commission, in the procedure for appointing commissioners, and that was the reason why we held off on taking any action. What I suggest today is that with the consent of the fellow commissioners, we recognize that we're more than halfway through this year. We have a regular election cycle that will be coming up in March of 2026 that we would have to change again at that point. So if it's okay with everybody, what I would suggest is we kind of maintain this partial year and target the March 2026 to make a change once everyone's had a chance to settle in and get to know each other. But I'd be happy to hear other folks' thoughts on the matter. We are also without a secretary and have been for some months, and that's something we need to correct. So today, at the very least, we need to decide on a secretary as one of our officers. So.
That is correct, President Fay, thank you. So what is recommended for the commission to do is, if the commission is desirous of maintaining the current president as is President Fay, so the commission would vote to reappoint President Fay as the president of the commission until the next election, which will be held in March. And then the president will thereafter open nominations for the secretary, and the commission will elect the secretary. I would need someone to make a motion for President Fay to continue serving as president, a second, and then a vote.
I'd like to make a motion to continue President Fay as the president of the commission.
I second that.
Roll call, please.
President Fay,
Yes?
Commissioner Flanagan,
Yes.
Commissioner Armenian,
Yes.
Commissioner Avanesian,
Yes.
and Commissioner Avedian.
Yes.
Okay, so now with that, thank you very much for your support. Look forward to continuing leading this august body for at least a few more months. To correct the matter of needing a secretary, we'd like to open up the floor for nominations for secretary. And does anyone have a nomination to make? Mr. Flanagan?
Sure. I'd like to nominate Commissioner Avedian to be our secretary.
Good. Do we have a second for that nomination?
Second.
Second, okay. I think you got it first. So, so we'll call a vote on the secretary position.
Roll call.
President Fay,
Yes.
Commissioner Flanagan,
Yes.
Commissioner Armenian,
Yes.
Commissioner Avanesian,
Yes.
and Commissioner Avedian.
Good. Well, congratulations, Mr. Secretary. Okay. Now we can continue with the less important aspects of our meeting. We kid. These procedures are a little bit stilted and formal, but they are important to ensure a well-functioning democracy, which is not anything we should take for granted. So we'll move to the next item, I believe our consent agenda.
Yes, item number 3, consent items. Approval of June 2nd, 2025 meeting minutes.
So I'd invite my fellow commissioners to review the minutes. They're in the packet here. If there are any modifications or changes to make, please let us know. Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Before we move to a vote, any corrections or modifications? Okay, I think we'll take a vote on the minutes.
President Fay,
Yes?
Commissioner Armenian,
I'll abstain since I was not present at that meeting.
Commissioner Avanesian,
Yes.
Commissioner Avedian, and Commissioner Flanagan.
Yes.
Great, thank you. I believe our next item is comments from GWP staff and other commissioners. So, Mr. Mellon, would you like to go first?
Well, sure, I appreciate that. Thank you, President Fay. Not a whole lot to discuss. It's been 4 months since we last got together, and I truly appreciate getting all 5 of you in one room in one place. So thank you all for making it here. I think the only thing probably worth noting is, conversationally, I've already mentioned this to a couple of you, is that we really had a very cool summer. We didn't have anything significant that we really had to manage. It was very beneficial to us in helping us to maintain high reliability in the system. We had, I think, 3 or 4 days, 2 different events that were in the high 90s. Nothing even really got into the hundreds this year. So we kept our fingers crossed and we made it through. So I just want to give you that minor update. Hopefully, we can continue to do that, maintain our reliability. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commissioners before we proceed to staff reports?
We can proceed.
Yeah.
Would just like some update on the Grayson power plant. I drove by there the other day, and I thought I saw the stacks for the Wärtsilä engines.
So yes, thank you for that question. I'm just trying to figure out where to start from 4 months ago. Yes, so when last we spoke, I think we were just beginning to get into the issues of tariffs. The impact of the tariffs kind of threw us for a curve. We managed to get additional funding through council to help us support in moving that forward. I think the most significant thing that we were able to get accomplished in this time period was that we moved up delivery of the batteries. They originally weren't supposed to be delivered until sometime January, February. We got them moved up to be delivered before the end of August because we had a 90-day window to work in to try and minimize the impact of costs, and we got that accomplished. Ultimately, that had an impact on our site arrangements. We had to change kind of how we did the assembly on the site and even changed locations of some of the batteries to incorporate our ability to store the batteries on site. So right now we have 92 batteries and their relative PCSs all on site, some of them double stacked. And we have a very congested site, but we've been working around that. ARB has done a great job at staying nimble and kind of giving us an opportunity to succeed. We've also had, it's been a very safe site. We've had very few injuries. I think the most significant injury we had was a twisted knee in one location. Someone stepped down funny coming off the stairs and twisted their knee. And so that was pretty insignificant considering how tightly packed we are at this facility. The engines, we're struggling getting the engines here. We have 3 engines that have been sitting in the LA port. Well, they made it all the way to the Santa Fe Springs train depot. It's kind of been where it's being held. But they've been there since, I think it was June. They were supposed to be on site in July. We're having trouble finding ways to move those engines to our site over bridges and infrastructure. Each of these engines are 230 tons, and the way to minimize the direct impact is kind of spread those loads across multiple footings and just spread them out. Most bridges really can't handle that on the LA infrastructure, so now we're trying to figure out different ways to get there. The latest conversation we're having is actually building a new train spur off of the main line that's just east of the UOC site and taking a piece of the wall off and basically putting the train right into our backyard, backing it up, and then offloading the engine straight off the train tracks. So right now that seems reasonably viable, and we're just going through the motions to make sure that we make sure everything is done appropriately and then we can get us there. So that's the current consideration.
I could ask a follow-up question on that transportation piece. The contract structure that we're proceeding with for the build-out, who is the responsible party for delivering those engines?
Wärtsilä. Wärtsilä had all the responsibility for getting the engines to us on site and then preparing them, and they're working with ARB as a sub in some case to move it within site to the engine hall, but all the responsibility still is in Wärtsilä's hands.
So if there are any extraordinary measures required to move them from Santa Fe Springs to their final resting place, that'll be Wartsilla's responsibility?
Absolutely.
Is there any dispute about that?
There's conversation, but I wouldn't call it dispute.
These seem like reasonably foreseeable challenges.
Yes.
I recall when I worked at LA City Hall, they moved a space shuttle from LAX to downtown LA, and they managed to pull that off. So I'm sure there's a way to get this done.
Well, I actually used that in conversation with them. But that vehicle is actually lighter than these engines.
A follow-up question. You mentioned 92 batteries, so what capacity do we have there? And
Total capacity is 75 megawatts for all the collection. So it's 75 megawatts, 300 megawatt hours.
300, okay. And then maybe it's premature to ask for a tour of the site.
No, you can ask. I think we could probably find a way to make that happen.
I think that'd be really interesting. I'd like to do that. Could we look for a date? And
Yeah. I think we could probably just have some side conversations with all the commissioners so we can work all of them in. But let me take a look at when a good date is, because we'd have to do it later afternoon when most of the crews are off site, because it is, like I said, a very congested site.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
No problem.
Anything else you want to add? Something?
One of the people who's integral to moving the space shuttle, since you brought that up, is actually lives in our community and was a former commissioner in our Traffic and Planning Commission, Aram Sahakian.
Hmm.
If you want to talk to him, he might have some ideas if you need any help.
Wouldn't
on
mind
that.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a completely different topic, much smaller than Grayson, but equally important for the community. There were a lot of copper thefts with the historic streetlights in the Ross Moines area. Can you give an update of where we are with some of the mitigation? Because I still see some of the A-frame barricades up on various streets.
Yeah, so thank you for that question. We actually are going through replacing all the standard plating with locked plating to secure the wiring. Not a simple task, but it's well worth doing. Quite a bit of the copper was pulled out when I've actually seen a couple different instances of how they've done it, but basically they back a truck up to it, wrap a chain or something around the wire and drive the truck. Well, that pulls all the infrastructure out, and it does a lot of damage. So it's very difficult to get back in there and reroute all the wire, but that's what we're doing. We're going through piecewise on all the damaged lights and repairing and replacing the copper and putting the new locked plates on them.
And the lights seem to be back on everywhere, so I don't know if there's the A-frames are still there, the barricades are still there for a reason, but you might want to take a look at that,
I'd have to check.
like on Cortez and a few other streets.
Okay, appreciate that. I'll take note.
I have a follow-up question on the power plant. Which bridges are on the way of transporting this heavy stuff? And how are you going to reinforce that? Is there any structural kind of investigation that they can bear that heavy load?
Thank you for that question. There were several different paths that the deliverer had an obligation to figure out. There is one that we kind of settled on that we're trying to figure out how to do it. There's a Roscoe overpass that goes over the aqueduct. I think it's part of the LA River. And there's quite a few snags with that one. Essentially, yes, we would have to put shoring up. The shoring would have to be of structural nature, not just temporary. Unfortunately, because we do get rain here occasionally, when it does fall, it falls a lot and very quickly. They shut down your ability to do anything in the LA River during a certain period of the year. I think it's October to April. So we would actually end up having to wait till April if we were going to do one of the paths over one of those overpasses. So obviously that doesn't seem real beneficial to our schedules. So although we're looking at 4 different options now, that one is probably on the lowest of the options. And we're just trying to see what we can get done to get the engines here as soon as possible. So Yes, any work that we would do would probably require shoring on any bridges we'd have to go over now.
Thank you.
Please.
Yeah, I have two comments, no questions. First off, kudos to our field crews for keeping the lights on and water flowing, so thank you for that, especially during summer. I know it's really, especially for the electric, it's really important. And finally, I want to congratulate you, Scott, on your promotion since we've met, on your promotion to, or appointment to general manager. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay. Well, with that, I appreciate everyone's interest in the power plan, and maybe when we come to the agenda forecast discussion, we can think about if we want a more, robust status update, since it has been a number of months, and maybe combine that with a tour or something like that. So certainly something we're all interested in. One thing I recall from a couple of years ago, we were thinking about maybe to coin a term like the summer of hell, where we might be stuck without Grayson and without Shoal online yet. Was this that summer, and we expect to have more capacity locally by next summer? Or is that schedule holding? Or is next summer the one that we're expecting is really the pinch point?
We were very concerned about this summer, and it came off being cooler, not cold, cooler than we expected. The year before kind of was our indicator, right? Right now, it's really hard to predict what summer's going to look like. We have to plan for the worst and hope for the best. So we're still planning for the worst for next summer, because we could have high load conditions. We could have a week of very high temperatures. So we have to plan for that possibility. But we're also planning on having Grayson available to us, sometime in the July timeframe right now. So we're hoping that'll be available to us. We'll still plan for if something goes wrong during testing, we still have to have backup supply for power. So we're always going to probably get more resources than we actually need externally to make sure we can supply what we need to internally.
Great. I think maybe what would be helpful just to look on like a 12-month rolling forecast, if we see both project schedules and kind of see where they land ahead of our expected kind of peak summer, which usually is August, September, right?
Yes.
I think that's something that would be good to just keep an eye on and help us understand what the difference in a schedule slip by 30 or 60 days makes a bigger difference if it's the difference between August and October versus June and August, for example.
Right.
Okay,
I
great.
appreciate that. Yep.
Okay, thank you. I think we can move on to the next item.
Item number 5, oral communications. We do have a speaker, actually.
On the phone or
Yes.
here? Okay, great.
Beth Brooks, you're on live.
Oh, thank you. I wasn't going to speak on oral communications. I will, but I wanted to speak on all the reports. But I just wanted to know, you don't answer the questions necessarily, but I'm sure that everyone is aware of the concern of people and their electric rates effectively doubling in terms of kilowatts per year from 2023 to projected 2027. And what is the role of the commission as far as, I know you don't set rates, obviously, but what is your role? Are you any kind of liaison between the public and the city council, the public and the GWP? I mean, what do you do as far as keeping GWP accountable, as far as is concerned, given that we have a $33 million deficit? Because people want some transparency, even as far as the tariffs are concerned, given that when the money was allocated to GWP, we didn't know what those specific terms were going to be. What happens if the money they took in for potential tariffs is not used? I mean, does it go back to the general fund? Where does it go then? Do we just keep it and say, well, we'll find someplace else to spend it on? So I think I will talk about the report, because there's also the idea of people want to see numbers. I definitely want to see numbers. I want to see what's there, where's it going, how much does it cost. Again, I just interested in your role, interested in when TWCC does have this money, happens to it? Where does the excess go? I appreciate all of the comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth. So the connection was a little bit choppy, but I think just to kind of restate your questions or comments in a clearer voice, some concerns about the increase in electric rates and the projected continuing increases through 2027, questions about what is the role of this body to oversee the commission related to those rates, and specifically what happens to any surplus tariff funding contingency that is not spent if we're able to avoid the worst possible situation. So hopefully you captured that. If there's something we missed, feel free to submit a comment on one of the other items on the agenda as we come back to that. Just to give a very cursory response, this body did review the cost of service adjustment and proposed rates as they made their way through ultimately getting approved by the City Council. I don't think anyone here wants the rates to go up, but unfortunately it is a cost of doing business in a world where things are getting more expensive, construction's more expensive, we're building a lot of things, and we have to pay for them to keep the lights on. So happy to engage in a longer discussion about that at another time. In terms of the tariff funding contingency, I think that's a great question. Maybe, Mr. Mellon, if you could give us a quick response. If the money that I believe the staff asked the City Council for advanced authorization for extra tariff funding contingency, if we don't end up spending all of that, what happens to it? I think that was the question.
Yeah, just thinking through it, I think we requested $30 million extra dollars. I think right now, this is back of the envelope, I think we have at least 12 million spent, and we have a few more million dedicated to something, just not spent yet. So if there is surplus and we don't spend it, it still came from the electric fund, so it would go back to the electric fund.
So the request to the City Council was not for extra money from the general city funds. It was for the authorization to spend money that was generated within the department through electric revenues on an additional purpose that was above and beyond what was previously budgeted.
Right. And the additional 30 million did not come from the bonds issuance. That was, we just found a way to work around existing projects, and we did a little bit better in our sales of energy in the market. So we were able to work within what limitations we had.
And generally, for anyone at home, the way the finances of the department work, in a nutshell, is we only spend what we're able to generate ourselves. We're essentially a self-contained agency within the city.
Right. And that's the drive behind the rates, is that we only charge for the work that we do. We only charge for what it takes to keep the system running.
Great. Thank you. Okay, I think we can move to the next item.
Item number 6, reports and information. 6A, Electric Capital Program Report.
So Mr. Scorza will be giving some presentation on the Electric Capital Program Report. Mr. Scorza.
Thank you, General Manager Mellon. President Fay, Commissioners, I have a general overview of our capital program in the electric side. It mostly deals with the T&D system. So we'll go over some of that, and you have the slides in front of you if you have questions. So we're going to talk a little bit about the distribution and subtransmission system, substations in SCADA, streetlights, and then a category called Other. When we move on, so some of the programs we have here is the 4 to 12 kV feeder upgrade program. What this does, it upgrades our system, it increases reliability, reduces losses, it increases capacity. We can have 3 times as much load on these feeders from 4 to 12, so it's 3 times as larger loads. The other programs we have is distribution system expansion programs. Sometimes when we get to our feeders, there's customers to feed at the end, or we want to interconnect feeders. This is where that program and that money comes from. We also do transformer replacement programs, so our pole top, our pad mount, our vault transformers are purchased in this program. We do feeder refusing. As we reconfigure our feeders, we have to fuse them accordingly. So what happens is that at the beginning of a feeder, you have the largest fuses. As you go down, the fuses become smaller. So it's coordinated, so you can lose, if you have a fault, you only isolate the ones with the lower fuses, so everything else stays on. So this is the feeder refuser. We also have a recloser program. These are auto reclosers. These are automatic switches that if a fault happens, they isolate a portion and then they try to come back on. If not successful, they turn off. Now, during wind events, we disable these reclosers. They do not reclose. We do inspections of our feeders and make sure that the feeder's okay before we reclose our automatic recloser. So these are automated switches that provide isolation and could isolate a fault, a portion of a feeder, so you don't get a large feeder out or reduces the number of customers that are out. We also do cable replacement program. This is aging infrastructure. We replace our underground cables in this program. We also have a vault replacement program. These are substructures that exist underground. We repair those as well and replace them as necessary. We also do a 34.5 kV to 69 kV transmission upgrade program. This is similar to the 4 to 12. What it does, it increases capacity, increases reliability, reduces losses. And then we have a pole replacement program. So as poles age, we replace them. We have a program where we do inspections as well. So these are the major T&D functions that we do in the capital improvement projects. Next slide, please. Now, the other categories is substations and SCADA capital improvement programs. So we do relay and communication upgrades. So we put digital relays in our system. These are mainly Schweitzer Engineering Lab, SEL's company relays. These are like sort of the gold standard in the electric utility business. That's what we're converting our old electromechanical relays, especially when you have 4 kV circuits. Those are on the old electromechanical relays, which are very reliable, but you don't get much information. All you know, you have a fault, maybe a current level, an alarm, but with the digital systems that we put in, you have a full data where you can reconstruct and see what the actual currents look like and proper analysis to better adjust our protection systems. We have substation improvement programs. Those are circuit breaker, circuit switchers in our substations, transformer replacement program. These are transformers in our substations. We also do battery replacements. You may or may not know, in our substations, the way we run our equipment is off the station batteries. Why? Because if there's a disturbance in the system, you won't have power. But these batteries are always there 24/7. They have 8 hours of operation time, even if you have an outage. And these give you the stable power. So our circuit breakers work off of the batteries. Our protections work off of our batteries. Our SCADA system, which monitors the system, work off these batteries. So these are very important systems to have. So the batteries are replaced as necessary to make them reliable. We go on to our street lights. There was some question about the street lights. I don't know if you know, we have about 12,000 street lights in Glendale. About 66%, 9% are LEDs. We replace about 400 to 500 street LEDs on our system. Our goal is to be 100% LED. So we're working towards that. And then streetlight services does repair. When we got hit with the robberies, that was a big hit. In some areas, they stole, as Scott talked about it, they would tie it to their bumper, drive their van out, and pull all the wires and the guts out of it. So right now, we're looking at having a new cover for them. We use a little bit of concrete on top of wooden cover. When you look at it, you open it up, you don't see any wires. So the thing is sort of a deterrent as well. Now, I shouldn't be talking about it because if they're listening to the commission, they may get that. But hopefully these guys don't listen. But anyways, it's safer. We're working towards making the system more reliable. Other projects we're working on is the Shoal Biogas Renewable Generation Project. We have an inspection program that's been on for 3 years that helps us do our capital improvement and focus in where the issues are. And then we have our wildfire mitigation plan. And a lot of the wildfire mitigation occurs with the other programs as we replace poles, as we upgrade infrastructure. For example, when we go 4 to 12, we take the conductors and set them apart further. That prevents, lowers the risk for igniting branches or vegetation that may fall on the line. So that really helps as well. And then next slide, I think these are some of the accomplishments we did over the 24-25 fiscal year. About 179 poles were replaced. 31 poles on top of the 179 were also replaced when we did the 4 to 12 kV conversion. Distribution transformer were installed, 86 of them. Cables underground, 2.8 miles were new underground primary. Fiber, excuse me. We installed about 29,000 feet, 48 strands. This goes to our Shoal Biogas project. So we connected our Shoal Biogas to our backbone system. So now we have fiber directly into our plant up at the Shoal landfill site. We've done vaults, again, SCADA with the communication optical network, the ICON integrated communication optical network. This is for relays. So relays, our digital relays talk through this network. Our SCADA also talks through this network. And then wildfire mitigation plan, we've gotten the program adopted. We're working on a new plan. We're going to work with our consultants. But one of the things is we're looking at the high fire risk zones, do some more conversion from bare wire to covered wire. And I think next slide, please. And that's about it, the general stuff. So I could take your questions if you have any. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to invite commissioners to have questions. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Escosa. I have a number of questions, actually. One, relating to number of assets replaced every year. Do we have targets that we have to meet? For example, I know the water master plan is coming up next. Do we have an electric master plan that identifies how many assets do we have to replace every year?
Okay, so we are working on our master plan for the T&D system. Actually, Scott and I, we met last week, and so we should have a plan in place. In general, for example, pole replacements, if we're replacing 250 poles per year, which is generally where we're at, that gives you a 60-year lifespan. We have 15,000 poles. Our goal should be more like 350. It gets us down to 42 years. So we're kind of looking at that as being a target. But we also are going to bring on some contractors. With the current staffing that we have, we don't have the manpower to get to that level, but we're looking at contracts to augment our staff. So we're working towards that.
Great, I'm glad to hear that. Another thing is looking at just the snapshot in time of number of assets replaced every year is one thing, which is great, but it'll be good to see a trend line as far as how are we progressing year to year? Is it more or less than last year? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For example, next time when we are doing an update like this, if you can show us the trend as far as how do we do compared to last year,
Yeah.
maybe however number of years you can go back.
Yeah. One of the things we didn't talk about it, but in January 7th when we had the wind event, that kind of shook our system. It was like you took a carpet and shook our entire system. What could have been broken, broke. We replaced a lot of infrastructure. That really made us a lot more reliable because that forced us to replace things that were weak. So things that we would find through inspections and looking at that actually broke. So we were able to replace it. We replaced 30 poles in that instance, that additional that we wouldn't have done. Also, a lot of other infrastructure that was there that was weak. We did a lot more vegetation management. We found the trees that were going to fall on our lines, they fell. With 100-mile-an-hour winds, which devastated the region, but things that could have gone wrong went wrong, and now we're a lot more reliable because of that. Yeah. So it kind of helped us. It's bad to say that, but the event really made us more reliable. So there are instances where we can accelerate by doing that, but we're looking at having some contracts in place to augment, and then we can come up with some of these key performance indicators, show you some trends. We could provide that next time.
Yeah,
Thank
that'd
you.
be great. If it's okay, I have a few more questions. So relating to 4 to 7 kV conversion program, what's the goal right now? What is the area that we're working on currently?
So there's different areas. When we started in about 21, 22, we were 50-50, meaning we had 50 feeders at 4 kV and 50 feeders at 12 kV. We were able to do in the last round about 7 feeders, so we're getting closer to 60-40. So in the next few years, our goal is to convert all the overhead to 12 kV, and then following, our guys are internally are also doing the cable to 12 kV as well. So we're following back both overhead and underground. I don't have the exact number. It depends on the region where we're working in the city. So we're renewing our contract. So we're going to have a contractor back on working with us. We do all the design in-house. We're also looking to see how we can do the procurement of the equipment. It got tougher because of the events we've had with COVID, and infrastructure was hard to come by. So it really played havoc to be able to get all the equipment necessary to be able to move these projects forward, especially the 4 to 12 kV conversion, but we were able to do 7. Our goal is normally 4 to 6 conversions per year. So we really did good this time, and we hope to keep that up. It's in the order of about $7 million per year. Okay. So it's a multi-year program. We'll see what comes out on our program. 5 to 6 years, hopefully, we should be done with most of the conversions. If there's some left, minor. Yeah, and then we'll also be starting to work also in the substations to convert them to 12 kV and then feed them by 69 kV. So,
going back to the 417 kV, so is it more scattered around the city or focused on a certain area? I know years ago there was a push on tropical acacia substation areas. Is that still in the?
Yes, you actually brought up the same one. Scott and I were talking about that. That's our main point. We have our transportation department where they have the bus depot. They're buying electric buses. The loads there near Acacia are going very high. So those are the stations we're going to concentrate on to make them 12 kV and upgrade the stations as well.
All right, thank you. A few more questions if you don't mind. As far as the pole box or vault replacements, I'm assuming those are replacements, right? The number that is there?
Yeah.
It says, did we actually replace a vault or we use a technology to reinforce it?
It's mainly replacement, so that's why the numbers may seem a little bit low, but it's a replacement of a vault, which is kind of difficult in the middle of a street, right? So, and where we can, we would reinforce it, but I think some of them may be beyond that. We're not quite finished with all our inspection program. It's a multi-year inspection program. As we get the results, then we'll put the plans out there to replace them.
Because I know Glendale used a technology called Voltec to reinforce vault. I'm not sure if they're still doing that. You're still doing that or not.
I would have to ask my staff. I don't remember if it was probably your time when you were here.
It's basically building a vault inside a vault.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we do some of that, yeah. And then we keep your excellent practices you had before. We're probably still going with those, so. In fact, I see your name on a lot of stuff we have.
Moving on to higher voltage, 35 to 69 kV upgrades. I know it's listed as one of the programs, but I didn't see any accomplishments in there. Are there any active projects that we're working on?
Yeah, so we have plans. For example, our line that goes over the mountain, we're running it at 34. It's rated for 69. So we would change the substation at Montrose. We would put a 69 kV transformer in there. So those are in the plans. Some of those are easy. The ones that are tougher are the ones that are 34.5 to 4 kV. We really have to replace the entire substation internally. But our plan is to standardize on 69 kV. So we may have to have some overhead work extra. Some of the conduits are the problem. I think you run the same thing in Pasadena. The conduits are too small. They're 4 inches. We need 6-inch conduits to put 69 kV into it. So we'll have to see. We may have to run some on top of our distribution systems, run 69 kV, but that's something we'll have in our plan as we're moving forward. But we'll identify which ones are the easiest ones to do first and most bang for the buck. But the Acacia and tropical regions are where the big loads are. Those are the ones we want to convert first.
Okay. Going back to the 34.5 to 69 kV conversion of Bel Air Montrose line, do we have a schedule for that?
It's going to be in our 5-year plan. We don't have it. We used to have an original schedule where it was in there, but right now we're going to modify it.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
And final question about the Shoal Biogas. Can you give us a brief update as far as where we are with that?
There's some negotiations with the contractor. That's why I can't say too much about it. It should have been finished earlier, but there's some hiccups with the contractor side. And so we're working with them to see when we can have the biogas project online. So, and I don't know if Scott wants to mention any other.
Yeah, I can give you a little bit more. Supply chain definitely played a part in the delays that we're experiencing now. I think part of the conversation we're having very in depth with ACO, who's the EPC contractor, is how actively they can push to get us back on track. Obviously, we're not going to meet the last June deadline, which is when it was supposed to be online. We are pushing to try and have something tangible by the end of this calendar year. It's more likely going to happen after that, just based on availability of switchgear and transformers and things like that. So we are doing everything we can to assist the contractor in as best we can without taking on additional costs and resources, but we're considering all options right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
It also might be worth noting we're in review of our 20-year plan, which is for us it's 20 years, but the first 5 years of a 20-year plan is the most important. We are re-reviewing that 5-year aspect of our 20-year plan. A lot of the questions you ask involve realignment, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, thank you. And a final one, if you can remind me, what's the capacity of Shoal Biogas generation?
It was it's 12 megawatts total, but it's about a megawatt auxiliary, so 11 megawatts hitting our system.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
Just to clarify on the plan that you referred to, the 20-year plan, but the first 5 are the most important. What is the schedule to prepare that plan, and is that something that would get presented to this council or to this body or goes to the city council? What's the process for that?
So what we're actually doing right now is kind of out in the ordinary. Usually you set the plan, you try and put it in motion. What I'm asking to do is a review before that 5 years is up. So I don't know that we'll need to bring it back to you or to council. Might be worth the effort to discuss it with you as communication is what we're planning on doing. But right now we're reassessing what's in the plan to see if it even makes sense. A lot of this stuff was kind of done around COVID timeframe, a little bit after. So there's been a significant shift. There's also a deeper understanding of what we need in our system and what our goals are. If we're supposed to plan for a significant level of electrification or plan for the higher penetration of electric vehicles in our system, well, we have a lot of upgrades that we need to do to accommodate that. We also have to consider these higher population dense areas like around Acacia and Tropico. And we got to plan for the future. So instead of doing some more of these slower piecewise movements, it may be necessary for us to make some bigger steps, which may mean bigger dollars, but we've got to get ahead of it. I think we're the tail wagging the dog. We got to be the dog wagging the tail. And we're just constantly trying to put out small fires where we just got to get ahead of the fire being caused at all.
Thanks for that characterization. To me, it sounds like the kind of thing that the commission ought to at least have some eyes on. So we can come to the agenda forecast, maybe we can add that to our future list. Any other questions about the electric report?
I have a few different questions, and forgive me if the commission has already covered these. Certainly, Commissioner Avedian probably knows the answers to some of these questions, but I'm going to ask them anyway for the sake of the public knowledge around these important items, which is how do you go about in terms of your inspection process? Do you do an end-to-end inspection? What's the cycle by which you're looking at every piece of equipment, every inch of the system?
Yeah, so this is the regular GO 95 126. So it's a 5-year inspection. So we have an inspection company that helps us. We get drone pictures, we do the infrared, we get high definition pictures of the assets, especially the poles from the top and the connections. So you have infrared, and so we see where connections are bad, what poles need replacement. So we go through that event. So we're going to retain the contractor. We probably have to go out to bid again, get a contractor again, until we build our internal staff so we can bring it in-house eventually. But it's worked out very well. And in that 5-year plan, then we're going to incorporate the findings of the inspection program. So you got to know what to replace, and this is what's helping us, what needs immediate attention.
Is there a reason that's not more aggressive than 5 years?
Well, one of the things we're also thinking of doing as part of our wildfire mitigation is that maybe an annual inspection of the Tier 3 zones, or whatever the new zone designation is by the wildfire advisory committee that's out there. So we're kind of trying to work with them. But one of the things we could do with the contractor that we have is do more inspections on the wildfire risk, higher wildfire risk zones.
Yeah, I recommend a little bit more leaning into that.
An annual at least.
Yeah, from a public safety perspective, certainly.
Yes.
And that would also give you an ability to prioritize
Yes.
those things that could be higher risk for the city in terms of things happening due to negligence in terms of not catching them fast enough. And then do you have a inventory of remaining useful life of every piece of equipment that's on the system?
Yeah, in general, we do have the life expectancy, but sometimes when you do an inspection, they're fine. Some of the stuff that you would say, oh, it's end of life, but the inspection says they're fine.
Right.
So it just depends. But our inspection program is very comprehensive, so it would give us the status of all our assets. And it took us 3 years to do that. We started early in 2022, but we'll continue with that. And we'll update our inspection information and then put it into our 5-year plan.
Okay. And then do you have a similar process for vegetation management in terms of inspection process to ensure there's no safety issues?
Yeah, so we do have a contract with a tree contracting business, a vegetation management. They have a lot of experience. Tier 3 and Tier 2, we do a lot more vegetation management. We do inspections. We're out there looking constantly. The January 7th event caused us to see a lot more events. So there's been a lot more work done. There was questions on the Tier 3 zones because of the residents being concerned because there were fires. So we did a lot more close inspections in those areas. One of the things that we're also talking about is the inspection. Not only would it look at the equipment, but also the vegetation as well.
Is that done in terms of Tier 3 on an annual basis?
That's what we're going to be doing. Normally, we would go through the entire system. I believe we did 8,000, I don't have the exact number. I think we did 8,000 trees, if I have out of 12,000 in the city. Yeah, Tier 3, we trimmed 8,108 trees out of 12,000. 8,000 of them were in Tier 2 and Tier 3. So there is a concentration in those areas. And again, why is it a Tier 2, Tier 3? It's the vegetation. So we do a lot more inspections and tree trimming there.
Have you encountered any resistance from customers?
In terms of,
Tree trimming?
yes, yeah, they didn't want us to cut their trees because of their, but during the wind event, please come cut our trees. In fact, some of the things we got is trees that were on their private property, they were asking us to trim it.
Yeah.
Where we could, if it touched the infrastructure, we would help them. But they were trying to take advantage of us to come and do tree trimming in their private property, which we normally don't. So,
Is the contractor West Coast Arborist?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
WCA, very good company,
Yeah, they are.
excellent company.
Okay. And then, again, I would encourage us to be more aggressive on that front, not wait for the next wind event, because you never
Yes,
know when it's
yes.
going to come. Final question is, do you guys also maintain kind of a worst performing circuits kind of list so that you know how to prioritize where to invest some of
Yeah,
your
so
budget?
the field guys, the engineers, the engineer side would be loading of our equipment. On the field side, the guys know where the tree trimming has to be done more often. So they send the tree trimming, maybe in some cases, every 6 to 8 months instead of the year, or instead of a 2-year cycle, depending on where there is more vegetation growth.
But my question pertains to general circuit performance. Do you guys maintain a list of how your circuits are performing? Which ones are the worst ones in terms of reliability, and focus your efforts
so
there?
we do look at loading, and we run models, and there's constant readjustment of our feeders and loads depending on what gets overloaded. Our inspection program also did the infrared, so we have imagery and information about what's being overloaded. And the 4 to 12 kV conversion also helps with that, because it kind of gives you a much higher capacity system.
Yep.
So, and then we could move load around, so.
I'm sure this will be part of the plan you're talking about, that I too would second the notion that we'd love to see it, I think, as part of our responsibilities to, provide some input and feedback, early feedback to it. But what would really help in looking at the report that you just presented versus the plan that will be forthcoming is some sort of better setup in terms of what are the highest priorities for GWP, both from a reliability perspective, but also in terms of the growth, load growth perspective that you were talking about, Scott. And because I always think about it when I'm driving around the city, all these buildings going up. We know how much pressure is on city council in terms of increasing housing, pressure from the state. So as every one of these high density buildings go up, I think about it through my lens, which is like, where's the load coming from?
Yeah.
Because the infrastructure is still the infrastructure, it seems.
Yeah.
So as we pile on the number of high density housing buildings and office buildings, et cetera, it just begs the question of how are we planning transportation and how are we planning power,
Right.
and other utility infrastructure for these things. And it seems like I don't see a whole lot of planning goes on. We just plop and build the building up, and next thing you know, it's like, I don't know where the load's coming from and how you guys are performing miracles in terms of maintaining the reliability that you do for GWP, given those sorts of pressures. So what would really be helpful in these reports is my point is that some sort of both prioritization in terms of maintaining reliability, like what are the worst performing parts of the system that really need investment. Because I think if the public would to understand that better in terms of how we're spending their precious tax dollars on these things, it would really enlighten them on what you're doing on that front. And then on the front of planning for the future, that too, I think, as we think about, all the, I know, difficult public conversations you all had on the Grayson issue. As
We're
I
still
watched
having
that
those
from the
difficult
outside,
conversations.
and we'll still do. I think all those tie back to people understanding what's the trajectory we're on for our city and our community, and how does the utility need to keep up with that projection. The better we explain that, I think it's an investment in the future when you have to come back to council and say, we have this big project or that big project that is required to build for the future. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
I I just like to just appreciate what the Water and Power is doing. A month ago, just in front of my house, they changed the pole, and I was witnessing how efficient, safely, and professional they were doing that. I was amazed. Within an hour, they changed the whole pole when the power was live. So really, they're doing very good job, and I hope that you're training new staff to replace those people because they're very expert, and you should have training for that. The other thing is actually in front of my yard, they kind of send a letter that you have to cut your trees in front of your house. So I cut, I didn't want to cut, but anyway, I cut it and it looks very ugly and I don't know what to do. So I have bought some sands, to put in front of my house in order to, obey that, because of the fire. Because fire is really very dangerous. So I appreciate that. I was told that to cut that trees, and really, you're doing hard work. All we are saying here is a kind of to do that better, and I have no doubt that everybody is appreciating what really you're doing.
I really,
And thank you.
Thank you.
really appreciate that. And our field crews definitely appreciate it. They're the safety workers that aren't safety, basically.
Well, thank you. I think that's it from the commission. Thank you very much for that report.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 6, report 6B, Water Master Plan update.
So Mr. Obogolu is going to be giving us a water master plan update. It's all yours.
I can repeat that. Again, my name is Chisma Bigolu, Assistant GM of Water. Today, I'm happy to provide an update on our water master plan and talk about what the city of Glendale is doing to secure its water future. One of the things I believe we can all agree on is that our water resources are significantly challenged by the impacts of our evolving climate. And so that, coupled with our aging infrastructure, we have infrastructure that are nearly a century-year-old. That really is the impetus for the initiation of this water master plan earlier this year. And so with that, just a bit of background about the city of Glendale's water infrastructure. And this may come as a review to many of you. But we have about 400 miles of pipeline, 33 pump stations, 33 reservoirs, and 16 wells, which we use to serve water to about 200,000 customers here within the city. As a city, we were incorporated in 1906. Shortly thereafter, we, along with 12 other cities here in Southern California, formed a collaborative with Metropolitan Water District. That's to import water from the Colorado River at the time. And so as a result, we receive about 60% of our water from the Colorado River and also the State Water Project System that is in Northern California. And so in totality, that's about 60% of our water comes from other parts of the country or the state. We do have about another 30% that is sourced locally. And so we operate out of 2 groundwater basins. That is the San Fernando Groundwater Basin and the Verdugo Water Basin. And then lastly, we have just a tiny bit of water that is recycled water. About 5% of our supplies is comprised of recycled water, in which we use primarily for irrigative purposes. And so that is just a bit of background. So if we go on to the next slide, And so when we sort of conceptualized this master planning process, these were the three pillars or the three themes that we wanted to go by. And so we've embedded this in every step of this process. Number one is community, right? I think one of the benefits of operating within a city as a utility is having a direct pulse on the community in which we serve. And so we certainly wanted to leverage that. And we'll talk a little bit about how we're doing that here during the presentation. If we can go back. Secondly is partnerships, all right? We certainly understand that we cannot do this alone, nor do we want to. And so we'll talk about some of the conversations that we're having with other agencies, such as Los Angeles, cities of Burbank, as well as Pasadena, to be able to make sure that we can ensure success throughout this process. And lastly, the reason why we're doing this is to ensure reliability of our water provision. So as far as community, one of the first things we did was to set up what we're calling a SWAG. This is the Sustainable Water Advisory Group. And this is a community committee that's comprised of members from various sectors of the community. And so we have folks from homeowners associations, small business owners, schools, hospitals. And really the reason and the objective of this committee is to be able to provide feedback in terms of what we're doing. And so it's a two-way street. You know, we talk about what we're doing and why we're doing it, why we're investing into the community, but also give them an opportunity to voice what is important for them and what they want to see throughout this process, with the hopes that they can go and disseminate that information throughout the community. Secondly, we want to be present at various community events. And so we have cruise night, touch a truck, and just various community events in which we can provide us an opportunity to be able to talk about what we're doing and interact and dialogue with the community. We've also conducted a stratified random sample survey to, again, members of the community. And the intent of this is to get an understanding of what is important to the community, which will help us tailor our messaging as far as whether it be water quality, water conservation, as we develop these outreach materials. And in fact, I believe that will be the subject of the item that's after my item. We will talk a little bit about the survey and the results of that survey. And so just starting with the condition assessments, and I want to preface my comments here by saying that this is just, what you will hear today is just a methodology that was applied for the condition assessment. We just received those results, and so I'm happy to come back to your commission next month to present the results. But I want to just touch on the methodology that was applied. So again, the objective is to ensure reliable service delivery, which will ultimately help us develop a roadmap for our capital planning. And again, the intent of that is to make sure that we're optimizing maintenance strategies and ultimately improving efficiencies, right? Not just cost, but operational efficiencies as well. And then lastly is to make sure that we continue to remain as sustainable as possible. And so this is a scoring approach that we took. And I'll start with the bottom row there. Over the course of about 8 days, we went and we inspected every single one of our facilities. So up to about 50 facilities were inspected. In those facilities, that's about 900 assets. And when we say assets, we're talking about pumps, we're talking about reservoirs, pressure reducing valves. And we had specific expertise for each discipline. So we have electrical folks, mechanical folks, structural folks, and we assessed the physical condition. So how does it look? Is it exhibiting severe corrosion? Are there structural defects? Do we have cracks? And so that was that. And then the top row is the performance condition. So in addition to that, we actually sat down with the operators. And so they operate these infrastructures day in, day out. And so they know the nuances, the specific pain points, and we asked them questions. Is it meeting capacity? What's the level of service that's required? Are we spending a lot of time at this particular infrastructure to be able to maintain it? Because you can have an asset that looks really good, but it's not meeting capacity, right? Or vice versa. You can have an asset that's beat down and deteriorated, but it is operating efficiently. So we took those two combinations and we actually developed the scoring that you see here, 1 through 5. 1 meaning it's in good condition when you take into account both of those assets. It's in good condition, minor defects, and 5 meaning it's in severe condition, meaning we want to prioritize this when we actually start the capital planning process. It's unserviceable, right? Perhaps if it breaks down, we're not able to, attain parts to be able to rehab this equipment. And so that's sort of the scoring criteria that was applied for the condition assessment component. And this is just an example of a reservoir in which we actually applied this scoring to. As you can see, the picture to the left, you can see that this reservoir is it's in bad condition. It's deteriorating, it's exhibiting severe corrosion, it is leaking profusely, and it is inadequately sized, and so it's not meeting capacity. And so this will certainly be scored high, poor condition, which is a 5, meaning that this is certainly something that we want to replace within the first couple of years, certainly within the first year of this master planning process. The second one was rated a 3. This is average condition. We can buy some time, perhaps year 3, but again, this was based on both the physical as well as the interviews that were conducted. And then the picture on the far right is an example of a reservoir that's in good condition. This one was recently rehabbed. It is sized properly, and we really do not spend too much time on this as far as O&M. And so this farther breaks down what that would look like per asset. This is a pump asset. And so what we did is we took the physical condition score, in this case was a 3, which is about an average. We took the performance condition score, and we had different components of that: capacity, regulatory, reliability. But what I want to show here is that we actually take the worst score. So, if the physical condition score was a 3, and let's say capacity was a 3, regulatory is a 1, however, reliability is a 4. And so we actually take the worst score, and that is how we rank these assets and score these assets. And so that was really our vertical, what we call vertical infrastructure. That's our pumps, reservoirs. We sort of took the same approach for our horizontal infrastructure. These are our pipelines. Again, we have about 400 miles of pipeline throughout the city. And so just to orient you here, the box at the top left, that shows the material makeup of our pipeline. And so as you can see, majority of our pipe, as represented by the green segment of that donut chart, is what we call CIP, or cast iron pipe. These are pipes that were installed in the early 20s. They're very brittle, and so they are susceptible to any type of pressure irregularities or tree root can cause breakage for these pipes. And so we're actually going in and we're trying to replace these pipes as soon as possible. The box at the top right there shows the makeup of our pipelines by diameter size. And so as you can see, majority of our pipes are about 6 to 8 inches. These are our distribution mains. We do have some 4-inch pipes, but we are trying to phase those out to be able to ensure that we have adequate volume for fire flow. And then the box at the bottom shows really when these pipelines were installed. And so as you can see, we had a lot of installation, a lot of growth in the 1920s. Again, that is aligned with when we became partners with Metropolitan Water District. We started to import a lot of water, and that is when we really started to build out our system. Again, that is with that cast iron pipe. We had another sort of surge in the 60s there. That is actually when we brought in water from Northern California via the State Water Project. And again, we sort of saw another surge within our city here. It wasn't until the 1980s that we really started to utilize ductile iron pipe. This pipe has a longer useful life than cast iron pipe. It is certainly more resilient, and that is what we use till this day. But this sort of shows you the makeup of our pipe material through the years. And I will say, so we take into consideration when we want to prioritize pipeline, it's not just the material, but we take into consideration what is the likelihood of failure, right? What is the consequence of failure? Is it impacting a hospital versus a warehouse? And also, again, we talk to our operators. There's nothing like institutional knowledge. Where are some of the problem-prone areas that we tend to see in our system? Are we having issues closer to the pumps where we have higher pressures that we may want to pay attention to? And so these are all things that are taken into consideration when we assess our infrastructure. So just to switch gears a little bit, I've talked about the community and what we're doing. I've talked about the infrastructure. The other component of this is water supply, right? It's great to have the infrastructure, but you have to have the water to be able to feed through the pipelines. And so I just want to talk about what we're doing on that front. This graphic, I like this. It tells the compelling story in regards to really where we came from, right? Where we are today, and with the implementation of this master plan, where we hope to be about 20 years from now. A couple of things I want to emphasize. Between 1991 and 2025, we've been able to decrease our reliance on imported water from 90% to 60%. And that is the goal, is to decrease the reliance on imported water that is less and less reliable. And we've been able to do this by increasing our groundwater. Well, the intent of this master plan is really to lay the groundwork to develop a new supplies, which is what you see in 2045 by the magenta segment there. And that is potable reuse. And based on our gap analysis, we can make up about 20% of our water use with potable reuse. And again, in our next meeting, I will be sure to highlight some of the specific projects that we're looking to implement here within the city to be able to make up that 20%. But generally speaking, one of the ways that we want to do that is to expand our current recycled water, what we call purple pipe. There are some low-hanging fruits. For example, we have several green spaces that are not currently using recycled water for irrigation. One is Verdugo Park. In fact, we've identified over 30 parks and medians that are currently not on recycled water that we can simply extend the infrastructure or reconfigure the infrastructure to be able to get recycled water to those areas by way then saving potable water. And again, we want to also expand our emergency connections. Right now, we only have connections with the cities of Los Angeles and Burbank, recycled water connection, that is. And so we want to see how we can either add more connections or even extend it to Pasadena. And that will really allow us to have more flexibility and more latitude to be able to develop these various exchange programs with those entities. And then lastly, continue to work on indirect and direct potable reuse. What does that look like for us? We can have, beyond extended infrastructure, can we use recycled water to augment our groundwater or replenish our groundwater? And so those are things that we're looking at. And again, we'll talk about specifics in our next update. And so what is the plan? We have the condition assessment, we have the pipeline assessment, we're looking at our hydraulic evaluations. We have a lot of water quality projects that we want to work on. We really want to take up all of these projects, all of these initiatives, and again, prioritize them. Prioritize them based on fire safety, based on water quality, and really develop a roadmap for our CIP over the course of the next 5 years. And the intent is to have an asset management program that will allow us to reprioritize or reevaluate these projects over the course of that 5 years. Because again, we want to be able to undertake these master plans on a 5-year basis, but have a way to, modify them if we need to in between those 5 years. So that is really the intent of this master planning process. And so with that being said, again, we certainly want the community to be involved. We want to bring them along for the ride. It's paramount that we do so. And so one of the ways that we're doing that is we're actually offering tours. This is on October 22nd, we will be visiting 2 sites. Number one is the Pure Water in Las Virgenes, and the secondly is the Pure Water Southern California, which is Metropolitan Water District. And this really gives the community an opportunity to see that this is something that can be done, and it's something that has been done, right? It's not just here in Glendale, but we have communities across Southern California and across the United States that are currently implementing recycled water to be able to combat the challenges that we're facing. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chisholm, for that report. I invite my fellow commissioners. Go ahead.
Just a quick question. You mentioned fire at the end of your comments. So first of all, thank you for this report. It's very comprehensive and appreciate the thinking that went into it. But from a fire safety, again, in the spirit of learning from what we went through at the beginning of the year, what sort of inspections have you done to ensure that we have the right kind of water resources in the high fire risk areas of the city so that we don't have a Palisades kind of situation happen?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So number one, we inspect all of our hydrants on an annual basis. Every single hydrant is inspected on an annual basis. But secondly, one of the things that we're doing is we're looking at the capacity of those hydrants to be able to provide water, right? And so, and as mentioned, we have a number of 4-inch lines, and when you have 4-inch lines, they really restrict flow and volume through those hydrants in times when you need it most, when you have multiple of those hydrants operating at the highest capacity. And so one of the things that we're looking at doing is increasing the capacity of those lines leading up to those hydrants and ensuring that we have adequate fire flow through each of our hydrants, specifically in the foothills. And so that's number one. Secondly is ensuring that we have adequate storage, right? And so the way our system is configured, it's gravity fed. And so all of our storage reservoirs are strategically located at the top of the foothills, and then it's gravity flown. But we want to make sure that we have adequate storage, even in the absence of power. And so we have to have adequate storage for 3 or 4 days to be able to fight fire if we need to. And so that's some of the things that we're looking at.
So does that include backup power for central pumping facilities?
Yes, absolutely. So as mentioned, we have about 28 pump stations. We are looking at adding a backup generator at about half of those pump stations.
And in terms of the added capacity you're looking at, what sort of time frame are you thinking in terms of addressing those issues?
Right. So, well, the short answer is it will be informed by once we complete the master plan. We have to take a look and prioritize it based on other needs that we have, other competing needs. But fire flow is sort of a top criteria that we're using to be able to sort of judge or prioritize those projects. And so the time frame is we want to have the capital project component completed by the end of this year. And that is just the assessment, the study. Subsequent to that, we will have the cost of service analysis, right? And that will determine what we need to do to actually fund all of these projects that we're thinking about over the course of 5 years. And so that will be completed by fall of next year. At that point, we would then commence with the implementation of the projects.
So I guess this is just a general comment, Scott, to staff, and whether it's the water side or the electrical side of this equation. I think, I know we want to do a thorough planning process, and I'm all for that, but we can't wait for the next disaster to happen. And so I think if there are things that are high priority that address this public safety issue, I think we need to, I don't know whether deal with that on the side, prioritize it, speed it up, act with sense of urgency around those items, because what happened in Eaton could have happened in Glendale. So we don't want that to happen. And so we want to have the answers to some of these things for our community. So I don't know how you might bifurcate that from a longer term planning process that usually takes more time versus acting with sense of urgency to actually address some of the things that we saw play out earlier in the year and see how we make sure it doesn't play out here.
If I may jump in, at the June meeting, we discussed similar kind of content that in addition to the broader planning process, we need kind of an acute assessment to make sure there's not some, oh shoot, we missed something, right? When we come to the agenda forecast, I think we should revisit this and schedule this kind of update in Chisholm with an opportunity for you to prepare a written report about what is our condition, where are our fire zones, which fire zones are fed by which reservoirs and which lines, and I think mapping all that out would be helpful. So I think that's consistent with what we discussed at the last time, and maybe we can revisit this when we talk about future agenda topics, and love to get your support to formally consider this and give us a chance to ask questions.
No, I appreciate that. And again, apologies if I'm revisiting things you guys already did. But I just, I'm dealing with this issue every single day. And so it's very compelling when you are dealing with the public on this and you see the victims. I was dealing with Eaton fire victims for the last 2 weeks in community meetings, and it's just heartbreaking. So I think, again, acting with a different, speed on these issues, I think, is paramount, given that we're coming up on the next round of fire season. But then again, fire season is year-round, as we know, at this point.
And one of the realizations I think that we came to at the last discussion, or all of our after-action or postmortems of the Eaton fire emergency, was that our wildfire mitigation plan, which is a regular process we undertake, is really focused on how to make sure that our assets don't ignite a fire. It does not, and it is not intended, the scope does not cover how do we make sure we respond and that our assets can help the response to the fire. And that some of that responsibility is shared between Glendale Water and Power and the fire department. Whatever the fire department does is not really within our remit, but we can certainly make sure that we're taking care of our side of things. So let's revisit that, and I'd love to get your thoughts on what should be the content of that discussion so we can make sure it addresses your questions and the rest of the residents.
Thank you.
Maybe I can say two things. One is, I'll quote Chief Brooks, there is no fire season, it's all year round. The second thing is there's nothing stopping us from taking action. Obviously, these reports that we develop are giving us great insight, and in fact are probably giving us good insight into very critical areas much quicker. So if we see high-risk conditions and we have an opportunity to take care of it, we're not waiting until the report's finished to jump on that. Obviously, that becomes a high priority and we adjust. So I just want to let you know that we are looking at all these things. In fact, we're looking with both the electric and the water plan that we're doing right now. We're looking for areas where we can combine resources and find benefit in both areas. We have an AMI system that we're going to be doing upgrades on the water side. We're going to be looking at that for electric within the next 2 years. But our infrastructure, the communication, communication and control for pumping stations, communication and control for substations, it all kind of ties itself together, right? So we want to take advantage. If we're going to spend the money, I'd rather spend it once on the right stuff than spend it twice on the wrong stuff.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments for Chisholm?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to echo Commissioner Armenian's comments. First off, Chisholm, I really think you guys are on the right path in regards to the fighting fire, whether it's pipes, hydrants, or reservoirs. One thing I really encourage you guys to do is speed up the adding backup generators to pumping stations. As you know, I mean, if there's a fire, even regardless of who caused the fire, your power poles may burn down. So you may lose power to a pump station, therefore you're not going to have power in your reservoir after a certain period of time. So I really encourage you guys to speeding that up and making that a priority. So that being said, regarding the master plan, I know you guys are in the process of developing it right now. Did I hear you correctly that you're thinking about finishing this up in fall?
So yes, so that'll be there's two components. The first component is the water master plan, the condition assessment. The second component is the cost of service. And so the condition assessment as far as projects, priority projects, will be completed by the fall.
Okay, all right. And I think I have two more questions. One is, you mentioned 62% of our water is imported.
Yes.
I was fortunate enough to see the Colorado River project. But what percentage of that 62% comes from Colorado? What percentage comes from the state water project?
It is, for Glendale, it is half and half. So I would say about 30% comes from Colorado River and about 32% or so comes from the state water project, depending on the hydrological cycle. If we get more rain, if we have a wet year, we could see up to 80% coming from the state water project system. And so it just really, the state water project system is variable and the Colorado River system is constant. It's sort of a backup to the state water project.
And final question, what's the difference between potable reused water compared to recycled water?
Yeah, great question. Just to kind of make the distinction there, there's different types of recycled water. You have purple pipe, what we call purple pipe water. And so this is simply water that goes through a conventional waste, just to back up, you have your wastewater from your home. It goes through your conventional wastewater treatment facility. Instead of, dumping that water into the ocean, we reroute it and we put it through an additional treatment, tertiary treatment. And it's then used for irrigation. So it's not potable water, it's recycled water. Now, when you have indirect potable reuse, or what we call pure water, it goes through an additional treatment process. It's the purified process. So it goes through reverse osmosis, it goes through some membranes, and it goes through ultraviolet light. And that water can then be pumped into your groundwater basin, right? And that is what you use to replenish your groundwater basin. The groundwater basin acts as sort of a natural environmental buffer, so it stays there for about up to a year before you then pump it back up and put it back into your treatment facility. That's indirect potable reuse. Then you have direct potable reuse, which is fairly new. However, it is being done across the country, where instead of, you basically get rid of the natural environmental buffer, and you can put that advanced purified water at the upstream of your treatment plant directly and rerun it through your system.
All right, thank you.
Just to follow up on that, since you're explaining that topic very eloquently, if there is ever a need at a community event or other public forum for someone to demonstrate the safe consumption of direct potable reuse water, I would be happy to volunteer, and I would encourage my fellow commissioners as well. There's a long way we need to go to demystify and destigmatize reuse water. All of the water that we drink is coming from downstream from places like Las Vegas. So it's passed through their sewage systems before it comes to us. It was all dinosaur pee at one point or another. So this whole industry really was set back a long way by a very catchy slogan 40 years ago or so. And this water is perfectly safe to drink. So if it's good enough for astronauts, then it's good enough for the rest of us, I think. And I'd be happy to lend my digestive system to help demonstrate that.
Yeah, thank you, President Fay. And so you will certainly get an opportunity October 22nd. And really, that is the intent of that tour, to show community members that this is something that is safe to drink. Las Virgenes Pure Water Facility, they actually have, it's a neat setup. It's sort of a home, and you go through the process of the purify, and you end up in a kitchen at the end, and you have a tap where you can actually turn on the water, drink the water if you so please. I certainly will. To demonstrate how safe it is and how reliable it can be.
Okay, Commissioner Flanagan, you may continue.
Right with you, Alex. Very good. Thank you for your presentation. I have a very elementary question. I loved your bagel chart, the 3 bagels, is showing the proportions and how we've reduced our dependence on imports or imported water. But here's my elementary question. We as a city, are we using quite a bit more water than we were in 1991?
Great question. So we're actually using less water
In 1991.
in 1991, and there's a number of reasons for that. Although our population has increased significantly, we've done a great job of applying water use efficiency principles, but also just by virtue of having, advanced appliances that are more water efficient. We have more water efficient toilets, we have more water efficient dishwashers, and homes are just becoming much more sustainable. So although our population has increased, we're seeing a downward trend in water use. Now that could certainly change as we continue to develop as a city, but for all intents, we have been using less water.
That's great. That's great. Good answer and good result. That a follow-up question is, are there more things that we can do? Have we become complacent as a community this year in terms of exterior watering? And is there more we can do in both exterior and interior use?
Right, yeah, so the answer is there's always more we can do. But really what I try to convey is that the issue that we face now, I think we're doing a pretty good job as far as water conservation. But this is not a water conservation issue. This is a water adaptation issue, right? And so we can certainly conserve as much as we want to, but our supplies are still going to continue to deplete as long as we continue to face the impacts, these climatic impacts that we're facing now. And so we certainly appreciate all the great work the community is doing to continue to conserve water, but we also want to be mindful that it's not a one silver bullet to solve this issue.
Thank you.
I have a question about corrosion. Do you have a plan for external corrosion, internal corrosion, and what is the technology you use for internal corrosion? Is it monitored? And can you explain that?
Of course. Yes, so depending on the asset, I'll use our tanks for an example. We have steel tanks. We actually inspect those tanks every 3 years. And so based on the severity of the corrosion that we may see, we have a plan to coat that tank. And, that coating process actually is a method to rehabilitate the corrosion, depending on the severity of the corrosion. If it's severely corroded, we may call for a comprehensive replacement of the asset. But if we're noticing intermittent corrosion, we may just recoat the tank, both interior and exterior. And that's just for tanks. For our pipes, we tend to notice more corrosion on those CIP, the cast iron pipes and things of that nature. But the ductile iron pipe, we have a method to actually wrap it in polyurethane to be able to abate the corrosion as well. And then I would say those are the two methods that we use for corrosion.
Don't have any internal corrosion measures.
Other than our inspection, no, we don't have any. When you say internal, are you talking about processes or the actual assets?
In pipelines.
Right, so we do inspect our pipelines on an annual basis, and that's actually what we're doing now. And so basically, if the pipeline is, if it's brittle, if it's realizing more breakages, we actually replace the pipeline. We don't abate corrosion on pipelines. We just do a comprehensive replacement.
Yeah. As you may know, there are for internal corrosion, there is this method of coupons.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are probes, and those probes are like electronic probes,
Right.
and you can see it on your computer what's going on inside.
Right.
And then the other thing is the control of lowest portion of the pipelines, because that is where the corrosion happens.
Right.
So I'm encouraging you to use that sort of measures for internal corrosion.
Right. So yes. So the corrosion control you're talking about, where you have your sacrificial anode and you can measure how much corrosion that is actually being implied, that's used typically for larger diameter pipelines, such as Metropolitan Water District. They apply that a lot when you have 48-inch pipelines, 60-inch pipelines, 100-inch pipelines. But when we have 8-inch pipelines, number one, it's really hard to install those corrosion measures, sacrificial anodes and such, and monitor them on those small diameter pipelines. And so what we do, again, it's actually more economical to replace those pipelines versus monitor and track that corrosion over time, specifically for cast iron pipes that were installed in the 1920s.
Thank you.
Do we get any grants from the federal government for our water system?
Yeah, we actually received a grant from the State Water Resources Control Board for the recycled water component for the assessment.
So that's a state of California agency?
Yes.
Do we have any federal, direct from federal agency grants? I'm sure Metropolitan does, but
Yes.
do we directly?
No, we haven't received any. President Fay, there are grants available, but a lot of those grants, you have to have projects that are shovel-ready, meaning you have to have gone through the planning process and you have to be ready to implement or construct the project. And we're simply not there yet. But we continue to look for those grants as we can.
But perhaps by moving forward with this plan, we would be closer to be more eligible or more competitive for those kind of grants to help implement the plan?
No, absolutely. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, we actually we went to a national conference. It's called Water Reuse, and we presented on this project to a national forum. And that was one of the comments that we got is, with the implementation of this master plan, there are a lot of grants out there that we can certainly leverage. And so we intend on doing that as well.
Okay, very good. One element of our water supply that I didn't see mentioned specifically, maybe it's captured in the groundwater category, but that's the rain that falls here in Glendale.
Right.
I think I asked this question of your predecessor, and I was surprised to learn that the rain that falls as precipitation in Glendale actually belongs to the city of Los Angeles because of some arcane rules around aquifer management. Could you explain that briefly? And is that a significant amount of water that might help us as we look forward 20 years? Is it worth trying to modify those agreements or come to some mutual understanding with the city of Los Angeles that might help allocate that?
Yeah. And so the way that is configured, the rain that falls in Glendale is not, you're right, it doesn't belong to Glendale because we operate again out of the San Fernando Basin. And so that is a basin, in fact, that we're on top of right now. We share that with the Vertigo Basin. And so the way the city, the way they see it is that rainfall, it percolates down into the San Fernando Basin, in which Glendale does not have any physical rights to, and that's why it belongs to the city of Los Angeles. With that being said, we have had several conversations with the city of Los Angeles, and we continue to have those conversations to see, number one, are these agreements, are they still in place? Do they benefit both parties, or do they benefit just one party? Are there potential opportunities to develop co-beneficial partnerships with these agreements? And we do see an opportunity there, right? And so they are amenable to going back and taking a look at those partnerships, seeing ways that we can work together, perhaps developing these what we call water exchange programs, where somehow, because we are both members of Metropolitan Water District, perhaps somehow they can give us shares of their Met water and we give them shares of our recycled water. And so the conversation is being had, and they are open to looking at what that could mean for both parties.
Great. Well, I'll defer to you and your counterparts to figure out the best way to resolve that. But frankly, I was shocked that there was some very long-standing hard and fast rule that seemed to have been enforced almost punitively against Glendale in the past. So this more collaborative approach certainly is encouraging. I recall last year, a couple years ago, the city of LA seemed to be celebrating their groundwater capture into an infiltration basin. I think Vice President Harris came out for a ribbon cutting, and they seemed to be very glad to celebrate the work they were doing to capture stormwater. So it seems like they would encourage us to do similar good work. And I know in the grand scheme of things, most of the rain that falls anywhere in Southern California ends up getting washed out to sea. And that doesn't help anybody, it just pollutes the ocean. So the more that any of us can do to capture rainwater and put it to beneficial use, I think is a net positive for the whole region.
Agreed.
And I would hope that our neighbors can support us in that. They've been very supportive on the power side as we've gone through challenges in the peak summer. And so I think that relationship is really important. I appreciate you making that a priority and thinking about that as part of our whole water ecosystem. Since this is a long-term plan and we're talking about 2045, perhaps we should consider outreach to some of our younger citizens of Glendale or residents of Glendale. Are there any school programs that we do to help educate students, I don't know, elementary school, high school, what the right age group is? But it seems like this would be a great science curriculum that would actually help them understand. And then when they're old enough to vote, they kind of have a sense of, why their water bill's going up, or, why the drought in, the Colorado River Basin impacts us. Is that something we're doing today or something we could look at?
Yeah, well, as part of this plan, we've actually consulted with an outreach vendor, and that is part of what we're doing is we are going to various sectors of the community, and not just to us adults, but to schools as well. And so we have not yet offered tours, but we want to also offer elementary schools and junior high and high school students tours of some of our water facilities to the extent that is safe, so that they can see what it takes, the complex processes that it takes to really provide them water day in, day out. So we are looking at targeting those younger students as well.
Yeah, we'll need the political support of future generations to continue, this plan. These projects will continue long after we're all retired, and this problem's not going away. So I'd encourage you to look at that. I know many of the schools in Glendale have very visible solar panels on the playgrounds, and the kids just see solar panels as a normal part of life. They hide under them in the rain, they hide under them in the shade, and I think that's really great to kind of normalize that renewable energy. I'm not sure what the equivalent would be on the water side, whether it's rain barrels, whether it's signage, whatever it may be, maybe purple pipe irrigation at school facilities. But let's keep that in mind. Probably easier to convince a child of how this stuff works the first time than to try to change the minds of some crusty old adult who's decided that they want their water a certain way. So yeah, that's my thought, and looking forward to the tour. So thank you again for organizing that.
President Fay, just might be worth noting two things. One is we do have a rain barrel program. I think the city does. And I don't think they're free, but I think it's a reduced price. There was one, I think it was a month ago we went did it. Second, we do have a Water is Life art program that we work with the local schools, and they basically generate handmade posters from kindergarten on up through high school, I believe. And in fact, if you want to see some of the artwork over in the Perkins building, we have all the latest contestants' artwork right on the first floor.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
If I may, so on the education piece, I know we have Glendale Unified School District here. Maybe we can partner with them to offer some educational programs for the kids. I'm just speaking about from my personal experience. When I ask my kids, they don't know anything about how the water gets to them or electricity gets to them. I'm not saying something complex for the kids, but I agree with you. The kids now, they're going to grow up, they're going to be voters, and they're going to be people later on that it's going to impact this community. So if you can look into, I know you guys are stretched too thin, but I think it's a good investment to make.
Certainly.
I agree. We do occasionally try and get around to the schools. We have a small group of us that does the circuit, mostly elementary schools. But I would have no problem putting more effort into a program that involved more than just elementary schools, the high schools also, maybe even GCC.
And just to add to that, Commissioner Avedian, we do have a member of GUSD in our SWAG committee, and they have expressed interest in not only partnering to get Purple Pipe to their facilities, but to educate their students as well. And so we will certainly leverage that.
Okay. Just want to let everyone know we've had a request to speak from Ms. Brooks. She spoke earlier and wants to comment on items 6A and 6B. So if there are no further questions or comments from the commissioners, I think we can go to Ms. Brooks.
Thank you very much. This is a wonderful meeting. I appreciate all the incredible comments from the commission, and this last presentation was key to understand relatively for me as a layman. I wanted to say that one of the things that really disturbs members of the public is when they hear two words, look into. Because if we had because of the Eaton fire in January, I would hope that it was already looked into certain things, because two things can happen at the same time. You can have a long-term plan, and you can also have a short-term immediate emergency plan in place, because I think the public wants to know, do we have enough water, especially, I'll be honest, when you have an electric vehicle and the city is pushing electric vehicles. I believe they require much more water. They may even require, I know this is a fire department issue, anyway, they may require more water, or they do require more water. So I think the public needs to know what's in place now, as opposed to here's our 5-year plan, 1-year plan for the fall. I think we want to know what's going on now. I think you have to treat everything, especially when it comes to electricity and water, which are life-saving, as triage in the same way that a hospital would treat the most urgent patients first. I would also appreciate if the public could see costs for everything, sort of charts, that here's our goal, here's our plan, this is our timing, this is what it costs, I think in a very easily understandable way. I also did want to say that we are definitely pushing electrification above and beyond state mandates, which is a very big problem for me personally, given that we are in a budget deficit. And this was pointed out by Mr. Mellon at the Community Academy during his portion for the GWP. I also do not believe we're getting any money from the state because of our density, because of, AB 130 or the density bonus laws. We aren't being compensated for all the things that are coming down from Sacramento that are actually, more people needing electricity, more people needing water. That isn't, I don't see that that's happening. I go to council every week, and I have not seen any money as far as I know. I know we're getting state grants, but I don't see that they're tied to the housing laws that are coming from Sacramento. So I don't even remember my comments from before, I'll be honest, with 6A. I know I had them, but I keep them in my head and I don't always write them down. So those are my comments. People really want to know. I mean, I feel like there's a tendency for the city to have long-term goals, looking into things. You can do two things at the same time. Really. I mean, you could have a plan to, let's say, fix the bathroom at a park, and you could still paint it before you're waiting to retile it. I mean, I know this is not related, but those two things can happen one after the other. But I think people need to know, do we have enough water for a fire? What are the plans? What if we have an outage? And I do believe that the Glendale pushing for electrification, which is costing us, I believe, more money, we can actually maybe not increase rates if we put a halt on some projects that the state doesn't even mandate. And I appreciate your time, and I learned a lot at this meeting. I thought it was really quite incredible, and thank you again.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks, for your comments and for joining us remotely. Mr. Obagolu, you can give me a head nod here, but the master plan will include various rates or costs for different sources of water. He's nodding to the affirmative. So that report or that plan will give us a sense of how much we pay per unit of water from the Metropolitan Water District versus locally generated sources, and that will help guide our infrastructure investments. So, thank you very much. I believe we can move to the next item.
Adam, can you hear us?
I am with you.
Okay. So next item will be 6C, Glendale Water and Power Water Survey results.
Again, good evening again, commissioners. Just to introduce this item, as mentioned in my report, one of the outreach strategies that we implemented was a random stratified survey. And so Adam will be presenting on the results of that survey and really what this means for GWP in terms of how we want to tailor our messaging. With that, take it away, Adam. Thank you.
Thank you, Chisholm. Been a pleasure working with staff on this project, and this is a very condensed version of a lot of data that was collected. So if you'll indulge me in a pretty quick presentation, I'm happy to take questions, but there's a lot more behind this if there's a desire to see more. The survey was conducted is a very typical survey for cities, for special districts, for water agencies, for public utilities. In a community the size of Glendale, 400 completes is a quite robust survey. Give you some context, statewide we might do 900 or 1,000. So 400 statistically relevant responses is very good for a city your size. You can see we offered the survey in 3 languages. 4% chose Spanish, 1% chose Armenian. Doesn't mean that those speakers don't speak English, and doesn't mean the English speakers don't speak another language. It's just preference. And the majority of people completed the survey online. We emailed them and texted them, but there was a pretty big chunk, actually more than most communities we survey, that chose to talk to us on the phone with our live interviewers. So getting right into it, we have some key findings you'll see kind of more visually, but high public confidence in the agency. There's some opportunity for improvement on transparency, support for purified water, and some opportunities to grow that support, and definitely high priority for investing in the future. So I'll share with you some big numbers here. First, get a sense of where people are drinking their water. 63% are drinking filtered tap water. And then you can see some other things fill in the gaps there. But the vast majority, the big majority of your residents are drinking tap water with some kind of filter on it. We asked them, how would you rate that on the left side? 76% rate the job Glendale Water and Power is doing. It's 76% say excellent or good, which is a very strong number. This is where I explain this is not an academic exercise. We're not trying to get A's and B's. We're trying to get majorities. And when you have a 76% majority, it's really, really strong. It's a very big number. From a transparency perspective, put it this way, they just don't know. They don't have context whether you are transparent or not. But we wanted to ask them anyway to get that baseline understanding, and a majority say yes. To the extent that you talk more about all you do publicly, to the extent that you individually get the chance to talk to your constituents and tell them every meeting's online, all your agendas are online, your budget's available, they can start to see those numbers grow. We asked them to tell us what's personally important to them among a list of projects and initiatives. And you can see this cascading effect. All of them are relevant to the residents, but meeting water quality standards is number one, ensuring water affordability very close after that, upgrading aging infrastructure. Each one of these things are priorities that they think are important to them, which presumably would be important to you all. And again, at the bottom here, finding new water resources sources, it doesn't mean that that's not really high priority. It just doesn't mean that they have the context to really necessarily understand it. We'll get more into that as we go along. Again, it doesn't mean that preparing for climate change isn't important to them. It just means that these have a much higher priority for them and a level of concern. We ask him, how concerned are you about enough water, in the long term for Glendale? 73% say they're concerned, and we ask him, what exactly is it that concerns them when it comes to long-term water supply? Cost of water is high up there. Water quality, drought, and all the other things that might be relevant. I think it's important to put into context that cost is high there, certainly because it's a relevant thing, but also there's talk of inflation, and I don't mean to suggest that your residents don't really feel some real concern over it, but a lot of it is a national narrative that we're hearing, not necessarily that you have individual residents, so many, the big majority of individual residents who are hurting over their cost of their water. It's just something that's high on their mind. We give them some messages, and we ask them if they agree or disagree with the message, kind of the statements, essentially. And you can see there's high agreement with everything we just said here. But first is Glendale's vulnerable to water shortages because you import the majority of your water. 75% say they agree. And again, I'll say we didn't give a lot of context here. We're just telling people this information without really saying where your water comes from or a lot about the agency. These are kind of cold questions to kind of get that baseline understanding so you can build off of this. Glendale's water and infrastructure needs significant investment to maintain reliability and quality. They get it. 63% believe you do. 71% say it's important that you plan to address the impacts of climate change. That's a strong number. 83% say that you provide reliable services, 87%. More than 2/3, 69%, say that you communicate well during interruptions, service interruptions. And another more than 2/3, 69% say you resolve their issues and problems quickly by phone or email. Now, why would someone be unsure in any of these categories? Well, in that last one, they haven't called, they haven't emailed, they haven't had any issues. So it's okay to be unsure about any one of these things. Even bigger unsure, like significant investment. I don't know. I don't know how much you're spending. I don't know your budget. I don't think about you. It might hurt your feelings, but they don't really think about you. So keep that in mind when you see the unsure. You get to grow these numbers over time if you choose to do more outreach, if you choose to engage in a greater way. We also ask them about confidence. So on the left side there, we tell them about 80,000 water quality tests every year. That's a strong number. 73% say they have more confidence knowing that. if I'm a commissioner, if I'm a policymaker, I'm going to tell everyone I meet when I talk about what I do as a commissioner, that we do 80,000 water quality tests. It's really going to engender trust and support by the public you talk to. Similarly, the idea that you're going out there and working to diversify your water resources is a really strong number. 65% say they have more confidence in you as you're doing those tasks. So really strong statements that you can make to bring people to be more supportive and understand what you're doing. We ask them if there's the perceived value of the bill they pay versus the water they get, the clean, safe, reliable water they get. 54% say they agree. There's they're getting great value out of that. And then when we ask them about rate increases to kind of do the things that you need to do, 43% support. So look, it's a good majority. 54% say they believe that they're getting good value. I presume you'd want that number to go up. And as you talk more about the projects you do and the value proposition, I think you can do that. And from a rates perspective, it's a pretty cold ask, right? We didn't say really what they're going to get. We didn't ask them if it was $4 a month or $400 a year or what it was. So if you put more fine detail to that, those numbers could very well go up or down. But if you give them understanding of where their dollars are going, we have seen in other agencies that number improve dramatically. We talk about purified water, and we're very, very clear about the fact that it's wastewater for drinking. We didn't go more deep into it, but we didn't sugarcoat it. It's wastewater. And 44% at that point say they support purified water reuse. And then we specifically ask about the term purified water. 53% say that gives them more confidence in the concept. We'll get a little more detailed here. How much do you trust that you have that the purified water can meet all state and federal safety standards to be safe to drink? 62% trust that we can get from here to there with their wastewater. And then what's your comfort level in actually, drinking it essentially? You've got a majority who say that they are either comparing it similarly to the water they currently drink, or have higher willingness to drink that water. So we've gone from a place where we're at 44% to a place where people are kind of logically getting to be more supportive of the concept, and this is typical of what we see in other communities. Most other places kind of understand that this is a thing that's being done, and we'll see more data on that in a minute. We ask them what their concerns are about purified water, and naturally safety is high on the list, smell and taste, cost, infrastructure reliability, all those things. What's great is, as someone who's worked on many water reuse projects throughout the state and throughout the country, you get to actually check the list off for almost all of these things, because we know it's safe, we know it doesn't smell or taste bad. Cost, yeah, there's a factor, but compared to imported water or compared to desal or something, it's certainly a great value. So you get to really kind of answer all these questions in a positive way and get them hopefully at some point on board. We now tell them that, hey, we're doing this already in Orange County, Monterey, Pismo Beach is coming online, and it gives more confidence to 50% of the people. 32% say it doesn't matter to me, and you've got obviously a smattering of numbers in other places, but it's a net positive piece of information that people kind of get. Then we tell them, hey, this water is going to be exceeding state and federal safety standards. 59% say now I'm more confident in this use, and so again, these are the messages you're going to want to talk about specifically. Exceeds state, federal safety standards. That's a great place to start and stop if that's all if you only have 10 seconds. And then we now kind of get to the crux of it, right? There's a new potable reuse purified water facility in Glendale would produce new local controlled drinking water for residents, reducing dependency, less reliable imported water. Do you support or oppose this facility coming to town? Almost 2/3, 66% support. Good 22% say they're opposing, that they're not with you, and 12% say they're unsure. Do you get to educate those 12% and have more of them be supportive? Probably. Some of them will probably also go to the opposed category. But you now have this kind of through line to understand that at a place where you started at 44%, when you kind of talk through the concept, you now have almost 2/3 support. And this is a kind of a little conversation in a vacuum. You've got to have this on a much grander scale with a lot more resources, a lot more conversation, a lot more outreach. But this tells you that you can move from here to there. This just quickly is a picture of who your residents are, who's drinking your water, who's in town. If you you're a little bit older, a little bit whiter, and basically more homeowners or single-family dwellers. Obviously, that was very quick. A lot of data. There's cross-tabulated numbers. There's hundreds of pages of cross-tabs and other kind of information that staff has that can certainly share. And we're certainly available questions now or in any kind of custom format going forward.
Thank you for that presentation, for summarizing the results. Chisholm, there may be some questions for you as well, so maybe you come on up here. I've got a couple, but I'll give anyone else a chance to go first.
Just one question for either the speaker or yourself. Given that they've worked on other parts of the state and other communities, other projects, is there any sort of assessment in comparison to other similar types of research? How does this fare? How does it compare to what else might be out there?
Certainly. Adam, I'll defer that to you as far as how we've compared to other cities with regards to the survey.
So broadly, we see confidence in special districts for the most part, much more so than we're seeing in obviously legislature, Congress, but there has been a dampening of that overall, right? We're being told not to trust government. We're being told not to trust any institution. It's a narrative from DC, from media, and so I think that's a challenge. But your numbers are strong relative to that kind of narrative that's out there. Additionally, we see your numbers being stronger when it comes to purified water, when it comes to confidence. All those things are either meeting or exceeding what we're seeing in other agencies, let's say throughout California. There are definitely places where the numbers are a lot worse, and those are kind of unique situations. But for the most part, you are with or exceeding your peers.
Thank you.
Okay, Adam, again, thank you for the presentation, the summary. I think on the cost and value question, I just want to share some anecdotal feedback in addition, and maybe to add some color. People are noticing the bill impacts. No one that finds out I'm a water and power commissioner cares about anything other than telling me that it's a lot more expensive. And there's good reasons why the costs are going up. We've talked about that a lot, but I just want to make sure we're all mindful of that. And that sentiment will probably be a headwind we're working against with any of these projects. I hope I'm not giving away the ending, but the result of this water plan may be spending a lot more money to build new infrastructure so that we can reuse potable reuse of recycled water. That's not going to be cheap, and that's going to end up on our customers' bills, right? It may be cheaper than buying metropolitan water in the future, so it might be a net benefit, but anyway, we need to be very sensitive of the cost. I think that's a takeaway that we see in the survey. The numbers for cost sensitivity were significantly lower, higher, more acute than what we saw in the other ones. I was very encouraged to see that education does seem to make a difference. And Adam, maybe you can talk about that. I know on a lot of issues that are a matter of public discourse, people have kind of made up their mind and they dig in. But on this one, it does seem like the more people learn about the topic of recycled water, the more open-minded they are. So could you help explain how that stacks up maybe to other surveys or other things?
Yeah, I mean, this comes down to the outreach that is done, and what I just did there, the magic of that those slides of that conversation is is really hundreds of thousands of dollars of, or millions of dollars of outreach, of direct mail, of online ads, of door knocking, of community workshops. All those things put together is what really goes into taking your public from, what is that, to that's a great idea, I support it. And I don't, I'm not trying to spend your money, but we've seen it in all kinds of other communities where, and there's examples. Los Angeles tried, let's say, for instance, water reuse and failed years ago. And part of the problem is the outreach wasn't there. And now other agencies have learned from that and have done extensive outreach. And also, by the way, started with a conversation about wastewater, about sewer water, about explaining really viscerally what it is that you're doing with a project like this. You can't sugarcoat it. You have to start from a place where they understand exactly what you're talking about. Because if at some point people understand it later and you've not really been transparent about it, it's a real problem, and there's kind of a revolt. And that, I'm not speaking specifically about that project, but even more broadly as an agency, you don't get to just be the obscure agency anymore, the part of the city that people don't pay attention to. If you want to have public support, if you want a through line of people being on board, and yes, eventually, being okay, not excited about, but okay with rate increases, the only way that's done is through extensive outreach. And I say that, I don't sell that for a living. And it's a lot of work on staff. It's a lot of work on other consultants, but it's the only way to preserve what you have is to do that outreach.
I really appreciate that perspective. And so it sounds like if we were to take the level of education that you provided the survey respondents during the course of the survey and extrapolate that to the whole city, that is the public outreach, public relations campaign that's going to cost a lot of money, right? So, but clearly it's effective.
Yeah.
I think one way we ought to consider doing that is take advantage of the fact that people are looking at their water and electric bills, even if they were on auto pay for years. When you get one that's 50% higher than you expect, you go and you log in and you create an account and you say, why the heck is my water bill so high, right? So we have their attention. Let's not waste it. In addition to giving them bad news that their water bill's gone up, maybe we can use that to communicate about, why is this recycled water safe, effective, whatever. And the other thing I noticed from the survey responses is that the top 2 complaints or doubts maybe about recycled water are things that people could dispel immediately if they just got to try it. You can smell and taste that it's no different, probably cleaner than what you're getting out of your tap at home right now. And you'll be able to know that you're not getting sick after a couple days. And after that, we've just knocked out 1 and 2 reasons not to support this. So I know I've kind of made it a joke or a gimmick about volunteering to drink this, but I think that should be part of our public outreach campaign, is that we should be bottling the water from whichever one of these facilities will let us bottle it or distribute it or drop it off at people's doorstep and say, hey, here's a free bottle of water that, word it however you want, start it at someone's toilet at some point, right? Once people try it and they realize it's fine, they'll probably just chill out, We're in a moment in this country, and Adam alluded to this, there's a bigger distrust of media, of institutions. I mean, people are afraid that Tylenol is going to give their kids autism. We're not getting much help from the federal government on a lot of this nonsense. So it is really incumbent on us to go out of our way to teach people, real objective truth about these things. And going back to an earlier comment, I think kids are probably much more open-minded on all of these things. So that's my soapbox on recycled water. But Adam, thank you again for giving us some data to back this up. And I would love to see this survey data kind of become a benchmark that we can compare against. You know, we do this again in a couple of years after we've done some public outreach, after people have heard us talking more about recycled water. How have the attitudes shifted? And it is going to be important because we saw how difficult it was to get the Grayson project approved through lots of iterations, a lot more scrutiny than water and electric infrastructure projects normally get from the city council, right? So building this public support is absolutely critical. So thank you for doing this first step.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Any other comments from the commission? Okay. Then I think we can move on to the next item. All right, Ms. Brooks, please let us know what you think about the survey.
Thank you so much. I believe I have spoken to Adam before. I think he's the person who did the customer service, the scientific opinion poll months ago to see what priorities the public had. I do have 25 years in marketing research, so I do have a couple of issues with this study, to be quite honest, because I think there should have also been ranked choice as far as what's important in terms of water, because if you present people with, oh my God, we have aging infrastructure, there might be a drought, you might not have enough water, most people are going to agree. And most of those numbers turned out to be 60% or more. I think the lowest number was 63%. Versus when you say things like what's important to you, which was not a ranked choice, though, where he did want to point out that climate change was important, I'm sorry to say, but it's not. Because in terms of importance, it was only given 39%. And in terms of saying, is this, do you agree with the statement? It was given a much higher number. And I think he knows in the opinion poll, it was in the single digits at the bottom. But I would say as a member of the public, you have not proven that this is something Glendale needs. I think that you're going to spend millions to basically sell people to spin this, to persuade them that don't freak out when your bill is much higher. And I think that's very disturbing to me, to be honest. So I think that unless this is absolutely necessary, I think you're going to get huge pushback. And I don't see that it's necessary unless the department actually goes to the state and says the reason we have this problem is because you're allowing all density housing laws to come in and we're increasing the population. That's as far as, as a layman, that's what I see. I don't think if the public finds out you're going to spend millions to basically sell them on this, it's going to be a good look. I'm not kidding. I really do not like this. And I also think that if you're going to try to sell recycled water, I do think it's a gimmick to give people a bottle. I'm sorry to say, as much as I just love this commission, I'll be honest with you, I do. I think you'd have to give health studies. And also, once again, I think you have to be transparent with people about costs. You cannot just sell them and say, hey, this is great for you. And then they find out, oh, my God, my water bill just doubled. You can't do that because it's going to ruin your reliability and trustworthiness. And you know how the public doesn't trust government? This is one of the reasons. If you say you're going to sell it to people and spend millions, to persuade them, this is not a good look. I'm telling you, you're going to have to tell people this is absolutely critical. And if it's not critical, hold off. That's all I would, that's what I would say to you. So I do think, again, as far as the survey was concerned, I think that probably you got some feedback from the city and you worded certain questions a certain way because it doesn't seem to me to be rather typical of a marketing research firm to have asked them that way. That's just my experience. But I appreciate Adam. I think this, he did a great job. And I think this commission is absolutely incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks. So we've alluded to the agenda forecast on a couple topics of discussion tonight. We'll come to those, especially around the fire preparedness. A couple other things that came up. It seemed like there was significant interest from the commission for status updates on Grayson and Shoal, our two biggest capital projects that are in process right now. Sounds like, both have encountered issues along the way, which is probably normal for projects of this complexity, and we just like to make sure we're on top of that. So let's figure out a way to slot that in soon. I also wanted to point out that at the June meeting, and as recorded in the minutes, we did discuss and agree to agendize a discussion of wildfire preparedness. Again, not so much the mitigation plan, which is a state mandated requirement to ensure that we are not the source of ignition, but rather a new request from this commission to ensure that we are prepared to respond to a wildfire adequately. I think that some of the specific requests that came in the discussion earlier and today were related to making sure that we have backup power to key pump stations. I think it would be useful to know of a list of all the pump stations, which ones already have robust backup power, which ones do not, which ones are planned, already in process. And if there are some where we don't know and we have to wait for the master plan to find out, I think that's okay too, but let's not wait for the whole plan. Let's just get a snapshot of where we are. I also think that when we look at the new wildfire risk hazard zones that were published by the state of California earlier this year, we should make sure our maps are updated and we're looking at that. So we may need to do some GIS work to overlay those high fire risk zones, but put a special emphasis on which of our assets, which of our infrastructure are in those zones, maybe at higher risk of being damaged by a fire, and or would be more critical to meet the needs of responding to a fire. So I think that's something that we would be interested in seeing. One example of something you mentioned earlier, Chisholm, about the 4-inch water mains kind of being insufficient for firefighting. I think that would be a big red flag. I'd want to see where do we have 4-inch mains that are in these high fire risk zones, and that might give them a few bonus points on getting swapped out at a higher priority versus some other 4-inch mains. Is there anything else, Zanku, that you wanted to add specifically about that?
No, I think you captured it well.
Okay. And of course, if you have other ideas or from discussions with the fire department, I think the sentiment I'm getting is that we would rather see something sooner because we're in a perpetual fire season, even if it's just, hey, here's an outline of what we think is worth, updating and reporting on, and here is what we got so far, and here are the unknowns. We need to do more research. I think whatever you can produce by the next meeting would be great. I think there's some urgency to this.
Yeah, I mean, the only other angle I would attack it from would be the objective, generally speaking, needs to be de-risking the situation to the extent that GWP plays a role. In other words, as mentioned, whether that's the water we provide for the firefighters in a situation, or whether it's an ignition issue, meaning risks to equipment, and that can be both the equipment side of it, the vegetation management side of it. I just think looking at all those things from a fire prevention and de-risking perspective would be really important.
So one comment I would add is I believe we already have a pretty good regular process around the risk of ignition and vegetation management, and we do that on an annual update cycle. So I don't know that we need to restate that, but I think the focus or the new report, the new direction to staff or request of staff would be how we respond to a fire. And maybe we can share the most recent wildfire mitigation plan that was adopted, so you have that as a reference. I'm not sure you were here when we last reviewed that. So.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I think that part is pretty well handled. So,
President Fay, one of the things I took away from Commissioner Armenia's question was it's focused on how we respond under those conditions, right? So there might be a conversation about water supply, I think is one of the things you're talking about, or our ability to support fire when they're going through this, fire department when they're going through this. We can definitely have those type of conversations. When we get into the infrastructure, some of you may understand this concept. Critical infrastructure, we can't give you all the detail we'd love to give you because it's just too much information and it kind of puts our assets at risk. What we can do is talk to you about percentages. We can talk to you about generalized locations and support, or process and how we apply our thought process to support the infrastructure. So I think we can bridge those gaps when we get there. But I want to make sure that when we're coming back to talk to you, we're not going to be telling you explicitly where a reservoir is and how it's fed, right? So it's a little bit too
But
much.
we could have
information.
a level of detail such as we have this many assets that are in this high fire zone, and of those, these are the ones that do not have backup power. Something like that would
We
be.
could break it down to like percentages as well for the regions. We could do something like that.
And does am I understanding correctly that the wildfire mitigation plan covers the issue of risk as it pertains to our facilities, our equipment,
Yes.
and things like that? Okay.
Yes, and mitigating fire risk, specifically around us causing
On
it,
those.
right?
Okay.
So when we talk about like how we would support fire if an event occurs versus how we would prevent the condition of occurring that might create a fire, those are two different.
From our equipment.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
One other scenario I recall from reading about the fires earlier this year is that as houses burned down and their open plumbing connections were basically just draining water out of this, there was no shut off. There's no like household level shut off. And I don't know if there is a technology or somebody's come forth since those fires to say, hey, this is the newest version of AMI, we can do a remote shut off. Is there some aspect to our system that we ought to look at, that if we lost 3 or 4 houses in this zone and their water connections drained water out of the whole system, that means we don't have pressure to fight fire over here? You guys are going to have to look at the map of where the infrastructure is and the topology of the network, but please keep that in mind because I do think that was a significant issue.
Sure, that's a good point.
Okay, some other topics that we had asked for scheduling that might require a little bit more prep time or maybe are not so urgent. On the June meeting, we asked about a discussion of the vehicle to grid programs, which I believe were included in our public goods program that we would look
Benefits
public
charge.
benefits charge program that we would look at a research study or some evaluation there. So I think we want to bring that back for a more detailed discussion about vehicle to grid. Which vehicles are capable, what's the kind of penetration of that, how it impacts our system. So I think we'd like to see that on a future agenda, as well as the demand response program was something we had talked about for June.
So obviously that would make more sense if we had some of that study done before we bring it back. I know that we have about, I think it was $200,000 we have set aside, and we're talking about basically doing a joint effort with UCLA, who actually has some individuals there who are familiar with V2G, very familiar with it. But we'll say V2X because there's different modes of vehicle 2. So if we're planning this out, we would probably plan it out for either a majority of that report to be complete or a general assessment at some point that we can come back to you and say this is what we're finding. So we'll kind of plan it out that way, but it'll be a few months into the future.
Ted, does that work for you? I know this was one that was important to you.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Mellon's timing on that. That's great. I would hope that that would include some best practices analysis from not just the United States, but different parts of the world.
Yeah, from the initial conversations we had with the professors assisting us, at least that we're looking into partnering with, he's looked at several concepts around the world. He's got a couple actually on campus that they've done, and we're going to be looking at things in a more broad sense.
I think we've talked about this, but when you start adding up all the electric vehicles and all of the energy that's sitting in the batteries, most of the time not used, that would dovetail nicely with our electric system, the capital planning report.
Yeah, as long as we can get it from where it is to where it needs to be, yes.
Yeah, no, I know there's lots of barriers, but there's a huge opportunity. That's really the intent of this.
And a growing
discussion.
opportunity too, I think.
Growing opportunity, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Maybe one change to our procedure for the agenda forecast that would help us look farther ahead is if we kind of rolled, instead of just through the end of the calendar year, we looked on like a rolling 12-month basis or something like that, so that we could see where these things fit, even if they're going to roll over into the next year.
Yeah, we could do that.
One that I would like to request that we talked a little bit about today, but I've noticed as a trend at lots of the presentations we get, and the survey highlighted the need for GWP to maintain transparency, is around establishing some kind of standards for how we report data to the commission and by extension to the general public. I see that there's a lot of variety in how KPIs are presented, whether it's the number of power poles replaced or the number of water mains or the wait time of customers on hold. And so I think whether it's related to the electric system, the water system, customer service, finance, other aspects of the department, we should have kind of a policy level discussion about what is the kind of information that we want to present to the commission. And I think some things that I would like to include, and welcome your input as well, make sure we're clear on the alignment with relevant department strategic goals. So why is this a factoid that we're reporting? We don't want to just see numbers for their own sake. They should all tie back to something we're doing, whether it's about reliability or cost effectiveness or whatever it is. What is the historical context for that value? So a year-to-year comparison or a last 5 years rolling trend, so we can see this number and how it compares to previous years. That's very helpful compared to seeing numbers out of context. I think for any item or most items that are worth reporting to this body or to the public, it's worth having a goal. So we're not just reporting a number, we're not just reporting the news, but we're saying we thought we were going to get 95, we only achieved 87, here's why, right? The why is the most helpful or most important thing, I think, for us, or really for anyone in management to help resolve those gaps. And then I think where we're underperforming the goal, let's highlight those. Those are things we should talk about more. Those are not things we should hide. Those are things we should highlight and discuss why. Make sure that that's something that I think this body can help with. If it's we need more money, we need to shift from contractors to in-house resources, there's supply chain issues, whatever the why is, I think that's a good fodder for discussion at this body. So I would like to suggest that we agendize a topic where we basically outline, here are the expectations for when we report data to the commission, and that we establish some kind of template or framework or expectations so that future presentations more or less align with those best practices.
All right, I'll say I'll take that to heart. Okay. I'll say that obviously we don't necessarily want to reinvent the wheel, but I can understand that there are definitely going to be some areas that developing KPIs for is going to be a new concept. So that's probably important to have the conversation to make sure we're hitting the KPI that we're actually looking at and that it makes sense. In that same vein, we may set up KPIs on things that are new to us that are outrageous and we don't know it's outrageous yet, either too high or too low, right? So that'll be something we'll have to ferret out. In the vein of, not wanting to reinvent the wheel, we are members of several groups, including the American Public Power Association, which carries many of these KPIs that all municipal utilities compare against. What I am attempting to do is transition us to that more national view to get a sense of where we fit into the national model. That's going to take a little bit of lifting because it's a transition for us. But that's kind of where I'm headed, in the sense that we have projects and programs that we're developing that are uniquely California. We can look to CMUA to give us a little guidance. But in those areas that we're just doing stuff new, well, yeah, I'm up for determining what it is that we're actually looking for under those programs.
Yeah, I think that benchmarking to our peers is a really good addition that we should try to include where we can. I've noticed over different reports over the years, sometimes we're benchmarking against Burbank and Pasadena because they're the closest and they have the same, their systems are also under attack by squirrels and mylar balloons or something like that. Yep. Sometimes we're benchmarking against other public power agencies, but not privates. So I understand there might be different reasons why we benchmark differently. But yeah, I think that's another really good consideration to add. So,
okay.
So that one, maybe some offline discussions, kind of work through that. But I think coming back to this body at some point, and this probably rolls over into next year, so that going forward, we have a kind of a clear set of here's how we present data to the commission.
Okay.
Great.
I believe I wanted to make sure there's at least one other thing that I believe you asked, outcome of the conditional assessment for water and the water quality report. So I've added those two to my list also.
Okay.
Those-
And we had also said, and I don't know the timing on this one, but the 5-year/20-year electric capital plan, we wanted to review that. There was one other note I had, and just circling back to the discussion about public outreach and attitudes around recycled water and the visibility that our billing system is getting as people get surprises. I believe we had a conversation earlier this year or last year around the utility bill design, the graphic design and the layout of the text and graphics, and that we had been constrained by a billing software system, but that we had transitioned to a new system or we're looking at new systems. Where are we in that process, and is there an opportunity to re-envision the way we communicate with customers through the bill?
There's definitely a way. We actually, we were on our long recess for the past 4 months. We implemented a program, I believe it's called Smart VX, right? Yeah. And that program basically allows users to see their information in a very particular way. It allows them to kind of rearrange it in a certain way. There's videos that help them understand what it is they're reading in different languages. We're pushing out different languages to make it more accessible to them. So it's kind of a rework of the whole customer interface. There's still the background application that exists, but this is sitting on the front end of it and kind of doing all this work for customers. Actually, we have Mr. Necessian come up and give you a little highlight on it. He's the head of customer service, AGM.
Good evening, commissioners, President Fay, Steve Nercessian, AGM of Support Services. We actually have on the agenda for next commission meeting our customer service update. We plan on bringing that and talking about the specific item, among other things. As with every other program, we have had some glitches, but we're trying to work through those. Is my mic on? I can't hear it. If we can patiently wait, I think in our next meeting we'll have the actual end users, and we can elaborate and give you more details on that. But since I'm here, Mr. Mellon, if I may, Commission brought forward many items. I just want to, for the agenda, we'll do our best to agendize them as we go, but there are a lot of things that you have desired, so not everything we'll be able to bring next meeting, but we'll do it as we go, and we'll certainly put them on the calendar so you can see when they're coming forward.
Of course, yeah, we understand that we can't cram all this in. We're already running, pretty long meetings as it is, but I think what we've got currently for November, the legislation update, those generally are pretty brief, I think. And it sounds like the customer service update you're already planning will address some of the questions. If you can make sure to address the graphical and text layout of the bill. I know, and with a specific consideration for how our customers erroneously lump all of the charges together, and they say, my GWP bill went up by X, when its components are sewer, wastewater, electric, water, taxes, all that kind of stuff. I think as these different cost centers are funding different projects and we're doing different things, it might help us communicate with our customers better if we more clearly broke those out as separate categories.
Excellent point. We absolutely want to talk about that.
I think it's really unfortunate that GWP ends up being the bill collector for the whole city. It's not fair. It gives you guys a bad impression. So let's see if we can resolve that a little bit or improve it. So I think those two items for November, and if we can add as much as you can related to the fire response, I think that's the most pressing. And then the other items we discussed we'll slot in. And we can, maybe at our November meeting, look at how those might get scheduled out over 2026.
Absolutely.
President Fay, could we also talk a little bit about the December meeting and the possibility of rescheduling it?
Yeah, I see we have December 1st meeting canceled.
We haven't met in, 4 months?
Yeah, what is the rationale for canceling the December 1st meeting? Is it too close to Thanksgiving, or?
In general, people go on vacations. I'm one. I'll be on vacation on December 1st, but that wasn't the reason why it was canceled initially. I scheduled my vacation because it was canceled.
What about December 7th?
I won't be back in shop till after the 10th of December, so if we
The
wanted,
8th, you mean, 7th is Sunday.
I'm sorry, I'm just, yeah, you're
I know
right.
you're eager.
Well, I just think that we need to be more consistent than we've been. We've had this really major lapse here. And the point of commissions is to just try to stick with it and to be on top of things and interact.
And something that we've raised as an objection before is that we're kind of at an adverse scheduling position because our regularly appointed time often conflicts with Monday holidays and 3-day weekends. So we have a number of meetings canceled every year because of calendar quirks around 4th of July and other things like that. So
if commission can give me a little time, I'm negotiating changing it, but I'm looking at possibly like a Thursday time, and I think which work much better for us.
Okay.
So I'll get back to you separately on this.
I think it would make sense to have a December meeting one way or another,
Okay.
given the fact that we have just missed 3 or 4 meetings.
yeah, I'd support that.
We'll look into a special meeting then and see where it fits on the calendar. It's,
Great.
again, we got to coordinate with all of you, so.
Yeah, there's some great scheduling tools where we can poll people about availability, you know,
Poll.
here's our, yeah, I didn't want to endorse anyone in particular, but
Everyone, it's become the Kleenex of organizing
Google polls
things.
work well. You know, what's an absolute no, what's a sure, and what's a yeah, if you have to, then we'll do it. So I think we could find a time.
Yep.
Okay, with that, I think, any other comments on the upcoming agendas? And make sure we note an election on the March meeting coming up. So, all right, well, with that, I think we can move to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
And any opposition? No? Okay, we're adjourned.